On today's Kirkwood and Dunn, we are talking about the craziest things that could happen in sports. Which is crazier? Indiana winning the national championship or the U.S. men's national team winning the World Cup? We finally look at future rankings. Where does Indiana sit in terms of the future, according to ESPN? We have some positional breakdowns. And finally, we wrap up with some listener reactions to last week's episode and a couple questions from you as listeners. You can always send us questions on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you prefer. We'd love to talk about them this summer. Let's go.
Powered by Riverside.
Tim, World Cup, everyone is going crazy about it because the U.S. actually looked competent for the first time. I know you are the biggest soccer fan probably in the Indiana sports sphere.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding,
yeah.
Tim. I mean, you love the USA and you love flyovers, so there's something to that.
Yeah, that's as much as I'm going to get into it. I mean, I watched the World Cup. I'm like watching it, but yeah,
I mean, hey, I'll give you credit. I mean, there's been other international matches that you have tweeted out, "Go USA" or USA. You just, if we win, you're one of those that are going to remind other fan bases, other world nations, other countries that they aren't as good as we are in that exact moment. It's kind of like hockey, like how we were during the hockey World Cup. So I'm a little bit bigger soccer fan, but I got asked a great question last night. Which would be more improbable, Indiana winning the college football championship or the USA winning the World Cup? So I'll let you answer that first, what your gut reaction to that, and then I will kind of weigh in what I think it probably from a historical significance has.
It still has to be Indiana winning the national championship. Indiana was the losingest program up until last year in all of college football Division I. So like USA, I don't know much, but I know they're not the worst country to exist in terms of soccer. And arguably like might still even be top 25-ish or something, right? That feels like
they are,
to use a rough analogy. So like that's still not even remotely close. Now, maybe there's an argument to be made that like the talent is still like the curve is steep to get up to number one more in soccer than even it is in college football. But it still feels like Indiana football is absolutely the bigger hill to climb.
I agree with you. It's been interesting. A lot of people for college football content over the summer have like said, okay, here's the World Cup teams and here's their national team or college football team equivalent. And so you'll see, anywhere from like the high end teams that win all the time, the prestigious programs like Alabama, Brazil are going to be similar, or the ones that break everyone's heart. Comparisons. Indiana's not on most of these lists. And you could say like, oh, that's kind of offensive. But I think the reality is no one equates to Indiana on the national team, on the World Cup stage, because to your point, it would be like a island nation going and all of a sudden winning out of nowhere and winning and beating the Brazils of the world, the Argentinas of the world as they go. And not only doing that, but dominating those teams. Like that's the thing that I think people miss out on is it's also dominating those teams and they come out of nowhere. The U.S. national team winning the World Cup would be a bigger deal on a world stage because soccer is the biggest sport.
Yeah.
Right. But from a standpoint of everyone has been saying since 1994 that the U.S. is some sleeping giant and has the resources that we're the Tim Burns of the world. We're just kind of apathetic towards it until we start winning, right? Like that's kind of my reaction to it. And so it's one of those that if the U.S. comes in and wins the World Cup, it is a big story and a big deal and we'll take all of it. But it will be a lot like U.S. beating Canada. Like, like we won the hockey, we won the Olympics, the gold medal in the hockey, and we beat you to do it. And you care more about this than we even do, and we still beat you. Like, I think that's going to be the tone of it, where Indiana's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen. What the hell?
You bring up the right point. It's the domination that Indiana had in 2025. It's not just the fact that they won. Okay, that's wild. in and of itself, but 16-0, like clearly the best team in college football, best defense and tremendous offense. The domination is what is also, where in the world did this come from? I think all of us can understand a little bit of a Cinderella story at times, but it's the fact that Indiana went and dominated pretty much out of nowhere is what really separates this from any other sports story.
Well, and also to like Indiana had some moments that were, you know, if we lost to Penn State, we're not talking about Indiana being one of the greatest teams ever. Like, whether you think 2019 LSU actually ranks with Indiana or where they fall in the all-time ranking, the fact we're even having that conversation from they started the season as a losingest program to now this is what is so crazy about it. So, hey, we're all rooting for the US. We wanted to do it, but it's just another reminder of like how improbable what Indiana did, that if the US wins the World Cup, which I don't think will ever happen in my lifetime, it still isn't as improbable as that. Speaking of improbability, then you go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
The one thing that is the same is a little bit of this like transfer portal era, which is Indiana built its team kind of out of nowhere. And seemingly from my little bit of research on the US men's national team, like Balogun, the guy that scored the 2 goals, whatever else.
Flo. Yep.
Basically, his mom was like shunned by Delta Airlines while visiting New York City. And then he was born in America. And like, that's his only existence to America. And now we get to put him on our team. So great. Come on aboard, everybody. Oh, you were born on a military base in Germany? You're Team USA Tillman, now. Yeah. Like, we are just plucking guys from all sorts of places. These guys are not from Northwest Indiana. Let's just put it that way.
No. Our best player, though, is from Pennsylvania, Hershey. So, like, we do have one homegrown talent. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to get political here, but like literally what's being considered by the Supreme Court right now would keep Flo Balogun from being on the U.S. national team. Like,
turns out immigration might be good? Question mark?
Wild. Like, highly skilled immigrants coming over here
providing
seems to
an
help the
excellent
economy
service to further America and all of its goals.
Yeah, but as immigration, it's like, I mean, Flo Balogun right now is a U.S. citizen, so like there is that to it as well. So yeah, it's a weird time for this to do well, and people have pointed that out on the internet about the inconsistency of rooting for the U.S. national team and then being for some of that stuff. So it is a wild time. All right, speaking of improbable, last night the Knicks won the championship. I think it's a 54-year drought, right? 54 years, like that's insane. A long drought. The Knicks are probably one of the more underachieving franchises in all of sports, being in New York City and winning that. They finally get through. Personally, I'm going to diminish what they did, but like, I don't think anyone's talking about this Knicks team as being an all-time great team.
No, and we are approaching a very different era of NBA basketball. This is an unprecedented run of new champions every year. We have 8 straight years of a brand new NBA champion. Not necessarily brand new. There are teams that have won a title before, i.e. Boston, but like we don't have back-to-backs. The NBA is famously an eras and dynasty-driven league in terms of who wins the title. And teams have these sort of championship level runs. And now the NBA has really shifted and it's much more of a parity type of league. And so this is not going to be considered that, but that's probably because of the way talent has been distributed across the league now is very, very different than what it used to be before. It is very much a college football style talent redistribution that has happened. There used to be only a handful of teams that basically had won. Now there's a lot more teams that are getting into it. And so you're seeing really competitive gameplay in lots of different areas and also an opportunity for a team to go pretty quickly to the top. I mean, the Knicks have been in the playoffs now for the past couple of years, but the Spurs are pretty much brand new. I mean, this is Wembanyama's 3rd year, and they were the number 1 pick 3 years ago. Very, very terrible. And now they were in the NBA Finals. So anything is actually possible now in the NBA. You just got to hit on a couple draft picks, and you could be really a serious contender.
It kind of, though, makes me go, is the Spurs setting up for like an all-time run? Like, just because Wemby just seems like such a freak of nature. Yeah. Dylan Harper actually seems to hit. Again, what was Rucker doing last year?
So bad. With Ace Bailey, yes.
Yeah, with Bailey and Harper. But, like, they're setting up, and then Steven Castle seems like that 3rd player that's in there. Fox, who was one of the best players on the Kings, comes over and is, like, a super role player, can
Yeah.
take over a game if he wants to. It feels like this was the year, like, the Knicks need to win this year because the Spurs are setting up for being the dominant team in basketball. So, it would be yeah, sure, the Spurs might make it 9-9, but 10 and 11 might have a repeat national champion or
Yeah,
world champion.
it's going to be really tough to beat Victor Wembanyama. He's only going to get better, and he had like 5 blocks in the first quarter last night. You have to play a totally different style than what you've ever played before as an NBA team when you're playing the Spurs, because he just changes the entire geometry of the court so drastically much and is unlike any other player in the league. It was a real testament to the Knicks, to help Mike Brown as a coach, to get them into a good place, because Tom Thibodeau was not getting very creative, and clearly there was a ceiling there. So they made the coaching change. That's what did it, and they were able to pull it off last night.
I thought it was a joke when they hired Mike Brown. I did not think that was going to work out. So it working out for them. Speaking of like comparisons of World Cup and NBA and stuff like that, the World Cup had something that I think the NBA should really consider, which is their VAR mistaken identity call. So basically, for those who didn't see the World Cup game, the U.S. national team player got a yellow card. Tim Ream, the captain of the U.S. national team, got a yellow card on a tackle right outside the box, kind of on the end line. And the Paraguay player very clearly didn't get hit and fell, but they gave the yellow card to Tim Ream. Video review happens, and there's a new call in video review that they call VAR in soccer, that they basically said they saw the dive, and it's mistaken identity. And they go back, they review it, they assign the yellow card, they take away the yellow card from the US player, but not only do that, but they give it to the Paraguayan player. And like, yellow cards really matter in a tournament like this, because 2 yellow cards means you're suspended for the 3rd match. And what's crazy to me is they do this. They did it pretty quickly too. And really no one argued, because it was very clearly obvious, which my guess is now players won't dive or fall as easy as they had before, because they'd be worried about getting a yellow because the camera can actually see the dive. I know the NBA kind of tried to implement this, but what we see with like guys like SGA and like even Jalen Brunson a little bit, like there is a little bit of this. I'm going to go up with not the intention to make a shot, but to get fouled. And can the NBA actually put this in the sport, which then in turn can college basketball potentially put this in the sport to get rid of flopping?
Well, and what it is to me is it's the development of the speed of review, because we've now lived, particularly in football, for decades now, where instant replay has existed, but now with not only VAR in soccer, but baseball's ball strikes challenge, that happens in 15 seconds. They challenge, they do it, it comes in on the screen, everybody goes, oh, okay, it's that. And then they all move on. And that's the piece that I think would change, is that people now, we've held it for a while, where it's like these reviews really killing the momentum of a game and the speed and whatever else, that like we maybe now get to a better place where everybody is more comfortable with a backup judge, a VAR camera, somebody else who's watching the game as well, a 3rd referee that can immediately, nope, you guys got it wrong, there is a foul, or change it or not, or wave it off, or like hockey does this too, or in soccer, like a delayed call where they're like, hey, we think there's something there, but let's keep playing, let's see how this goes, so it doesn't like kill a fast break or whatever. Those are all things that I feel like are innovations that are to become across a lot of sports, where we can take good use of the incredible camera technology that's being out there and still, quote unquote, get it right, which everybody kind of wants, but also not kill the speed of the game. Because that was really bad for the NBA for the past couple of years, was just like these challenges and these reviews, and it would take 3.5 minutes for a guy's shoelace to grace an out of bounds line. And then we just spent 25 minutes playing the last 90 seconds of a game.
The WNBA is going through that right now. Like, my household is a big WNBA household. We watch almost every game, and it is, when there is a review, it takes forever. And a lot of times in the WNBA, it's like looking for an elbow and like measuring intent. And you're just like,
Yeah.
why is it taking so long? I think the biggest thing that soccer does, baseball does, college football does on some level is they give the power to a review official and don't let the people on the court decide. So like the review official can look at stuff earlier as it's developing. Like you said, like in soccer, it's called advantage. Like that's always been in the sport that if there's a foul, but the team who got the foul commit on them can keep playing if it doesn't, if advantage happens. And then they will retroactively go back and give a yellow card if they need to, or a red card. In basketball or college football, they're immediately reviewing. They'll buzz the official. The official comes over and has a discussion. But it sounds like we've seen the ACC have this invention where they actually show the conversation between the official on the field and the replay booth, which is a fascinating development. They should do that in all conferences. But like that's the type of thing that the NBA lets those three officials and the WNBA lets those three officials like look at it and make the decision. There just needs to be an empowered fourth official that's only job is to do this review. Baseball has Major League Baseball in New York has like their headquarters and stuff that does it. Hopefully you're right. Like this is the stuff that we see that make things quicker, that it's there. And a lot of times I know people get really mad at in reviews. Like if it takes this long to look at it, then it probably shouldn't be overturned, right? And I do kind of think that common sense has to do that. Tim, another thing baseball does that you're talking about is that timing, like where the manager gets like 30 seconds to decide if he's going to challenge, and immediately for balls and strikes, you have to signal to your head. Yeah, because in WNBA, I don't watch a lot of NBA, but like WNBA, like they take a long time to decide. Like they will literally like delay the game for and then they take.
And that's one of the more like old man opinions that I have. I've got a number of them, but I'll disclose
Tim's
one
takes.
right now.
You want me to play the song?
Is like I actually don't care about getting it right all the time. I really don't.
Yeah.
Maybe in like a title game type of situation I would, or a playoff game a little bit, but like,
well, if it's your
I'm
team,
okay.
you care.
Yeah, but like I kind of want to accept that there are. Hey, this happens in football all the time. It happens. There are fouls on every single play. If you had a million cameras around and a million referees, you could find a foul if you wanted to. So I accept the fact that only some get called, some don't. You know, there's a little bit of review that I'm happy with, but I have over the years aired more on the like. We started this. I remember when instant replay started the NFL, and it was very much like the big notion was the like it has to be conclusive evidence to overturn, and that somehow became like, there's kind of some evidence, and I think it's this. And now they overturn all kinds of things. And early on, it was so much of like just lay with the call in the field. This has to be like egregious to do that. And now it seems so much more middle ground that they're just using replay to make the call.
Well, college football got rid of the terminology of play stands versus play confirms. Like, I wish that was still there. Like, Marissa would love to watch and predict. They're going to say stands or they're going to say confirm, like where things are. And now they just say like the call is confirmed or overturned. They don't differentiate it. And so like it drives me insane that is the that they've actually got regressive in terms of like the levels there. But is the worst replay invention right now the 1st and 10 in the NFL where the first down marker is, how long it takes for them to find where the football chip is compared to, because they're like, we got rid of chains. Like that was their big thing. Like we got rid of change. It takes forever for them to get a call. That should be instantaneous. I don't understand what AI model they're using that's so slow that it takes forever to figure out where the ball is.
Yeah, the chains probably do need to go. This is like, we can all just agree.
Well, they still do the chain. They don't do the chains anymore. It's the
well, they
what I'm talking about, the graphic, like the shadow thing that they do where they're like seeing it on the field for.
No, but I'm going to correct the record here.
First down.
That exists, but it's not like the official measurement. That's only a like broadcast thing. They have the chip in there, so they're like showing it. They're just like trial running it right now. Like the chains and the referee spotting is still like the official measurement thing. That's only like an in broadcast and in stadium thing where they're like, ooh, look, it's 3 inches away versus 2 feet. Like That's not like the official measurement right now. I think the plan is for it to be, but that's not the official measurement in football.
Okay, so no. The traditional 10-yard sideline changes are no longer the official primary measurement in professional football. The NFL adopted Sony's Hawkeye virtual measurement system. It utilizes multiple 8K cameras placed around the stadium to officially track the exact position of the football in seconds, which it's not seconds. It takes minutes for that to happen. They switched it in 2025 going into it. It is still in college, but not the NFL.
Okay, that was a change last season then.
Yes, but still, my whole point is it takes too long. What is it taking?
How do we in tennis instantly have the ball dropping in as a graphic, 3 blades of grass in between, and off it goes, and we're like, all right, it's in. And yet it's like, did he get the first down or not? We're like, let's take 95 seconds for this.
Baseball the same way. Like that ABS system works so fast. I'm guessing like what they'll say is because the football isn't or there's no clear view like there is baseball strike zones, tennis lines.
You have the camera to track the ball. Yeah,
exactly.
The
there's so many legs
in between, and
yes. But that's where it's like, how is there not chip technology that like, I can go. I mean, we have this for the little 500. There's a little wire that runs under the track that the little chip on the bike tells when it crosses the line. Like, I get that the track always moves, but how is that technology not figured out to where that's all working?
Well, I don't think anybody really wants Bill Gates tracking everybody's body movement and, some of those things. So I think that's why we're straying away from all the radio signals that would be needed to track the ball movement.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, Tim, you sent me this week or last week. We were supposed to talk about it on Wednesday, but we ran out of time. ESPN released their future rankings. So basically, they're taking everybody, all 68 power conference teams, and going, okay, this is where programs are headed, and this is how we're ranking them. Like, we've seen that from, I think you and I talked about JD Pickle on here. I call him, people got mad at me online because I called him Pickle. And I'm like, guys, I know it's Pickle. That's what he goes by, but I'm going to call him Pickle for the rest of the time until he says something. And by the way, it's so like me to mispronunciate somebody's last name. So it is on brand for Trent. They looked at 2025. They looked at 2024. I think this one thing that is important here is this is Adam Rittenberg wrote the article. I don't know if it's fully him that did this. It's not SB Plus, which, usually is more favorable towards what Indiana has been doing in college football. This is more of opinion, I guess, like a weighted, we're given a rating on quarterback situation, offensive line, defensive line, roster management, star power, coaching staff, and then we're weighting them. Last year, going into the season, Indiana checked in at number 20, which very clearly is not going to be good enough when you look at it. Now they jumped all the way up to number six. Sorry, I was looking at the top there. What are they?
They're 7th. They're 7th.
Okay, they are 7th. So Indiana checks in at number 7th, right behind Miami. What was your reaction to this when you're reading through this article? It was enough that you're like, okay, I'm going to send this on. And like, what stood out to you?
It's just kind of insane that they're 7th. Like, there appears to be a little bit of a formula, right? They've broken this down between like categories of sort of what is your quarterback situation, your sort of line situation, your overall roster outlook and coaching staff, and star power too, I guess. But like that just, to me, star power is a really dumb way to measure this. Indiana just proved you don't need 5-star star power, or at least the way people think of quote unquote star power, to win and to dominate at the highest levels. So 7 to me just seemed odd. I guess like if you were to ask me like what is actually maybe the real weakness here a little bit, it's really like QB situation. But again, Kurt Cignetti has proven that he just takes whatever quarterback he wants on the transfer portal and turns it into an all-conference quarterback. Like, I don't care that we don't have a highly regarded backup or some 5-star from an Elite 11 camp already, whatever. Like, I will find the next guy that'll go through it. So to me, 7 just seemed insane. And then ultimately, Notre Dame being number one is unbelievable. What, like, because of CJ Carr? Like, what is? Don't talk to me about Marcus Freeman. You know what Marcus Freeman was doing in the national championship game? Sitting in a booth, color commentating. Don't talk to me about coaching prowess. Like Marcus Freeman, give me a break. I'm not saying Indiana necessarily had to be one. I understand there's a lot of dynamics at play at college football. Indiana still, even though people talk about how much money they spend, is not even in like the top 15 of programs in terms of, roster spend. So, okay, I get that they maybe wouldn't be one, but 7, come on, give me a break.
Yeah. So one, I don't envy this. Like you're writing this article, Adam Rittenberg and JD Pickell doing this. I think College Football Sam did this. You do this for content, right? Like you do, because there is no way to predict future rankings. Like if you are truly predicting future rankings and you had Indiana at 20 last year, how the heck do they jump up to 7? Like, because if you're truly like trying to predict out, back in the day, NCAA football 2014, EA Sports, right? When you would recruit highly, they had like what your projected finish will be going forward as part of like your letter grade that was national championship contender. Now they do it a little bit different now based off of recruiting. But the reality in today's college football, the Texas, the Notre Dames, the Miamis that are in front of Indiana, like, yeah, they recruit really highly, but those recruits, unless you're Georgia, you supplement so much with transfer portal classes and stuff like that, that how the heck are you supposed to do predictions on where things are going? And I think, for my whole thing is like, it's almost an impossible task to rank it. They tried. I agree with you. Makes no sense for me to see Notre Dame right there. Cause like you're putting Notre Dame, like you said, because of CJ Carr. Okay, CJ Carr is going to be there 1 more year,
right,
2 more years.
gone.
And what other quarterback has Marcus Freeman shown the ability to develop to be in that spot? Like Riley Leonard probably had a worse year at Notre Dame than he did Duke the year prior. Riley Leonard is probably the reason why they lost to Ohio State in the national championship game. So quarterback stuff, I don't know why they would be given the respect. I'm not saying Notre Dame shouldn't be top 10, but number 1 is kind of crazy. But with all that in mind, I think the big elephant in the room for future rankings for Indiana, Cignetti's age and what happens with these coordinators. Like, I think that is the biggest thing when you're going, okay, these rankings are supposed to look at the future. What does that mean for Indiana?
It's true. It really is. I would be less concerned about Cignetti's age. Feels like he could still do a decade if he really wanted to. But there's no doubt that having the continuity of Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan for many years now has been incredibly fruitful. And those two are, we were both talking often. It was insane that they were not getting head coaching looks really. Now, maybe they were putting out the feelers of being like, guys, unless you're in an elite program or you're going to pay me an insane amount, like I'm going to stick here for another year. They're waiting for the right turn on the carousel, so to speak. But you're right. I would be worried about that long term. But ultimately, like Cignetti, man, God bless him. He's my Lord and Savior. I've got no doubt. Really, this article probably should have been a tiers based type of article, but tiers doesn't drive the clicks. So it drove the click for me, and I got upset about it being 7. When in reality, if you were trying to say like, here's the 10 in the top tier, and Indiana's in there along with Notre Dame, I wouldn't be upset. I'd be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. I get all these things. But now you tell me Indiana's 7 and Notre Dame is 1, I'm bringing out the broomstick.
Well, and honestly, if Indiana goes and has a college football playoff year this year, no one can write anything about Indiana not being number 1 anymore, because what did I just talk about? Like, they're looking at recruiting and all this type of stuff, and the offensive defensive line, they're pointing out Indiana's depth is not as there, like compared to the other people. But if Indiana goes in this transfer portal era, the last 4 years that, Indiana's capitalized, which would be the 3rd year after next season, it is a proof that Curt Cignetti does it better than anyone else. And so you just have to give them the benefit of the doubt regardless of what's there, which is what everyone reminds me about the high school kids when it comes to recruiting, which Indiana just got a cornerback 3-star recruit today. They remind me Cignetti can figure it out. Then they've shown proof. And that is true until proven otherwise.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and it's, we've been right, I think, to have a little bit of doubt, a little bit of criticism of Cignetti, and to go, is this going to be the right move? Is this really going to work out? Now, he has proven most times, more often than not, that things work out and he finds the right talent and builds the right roster, et cetera. But if all things are being equal, I think you and I both agree, like, well, we would prefer to just be getting nothing but 5 stars. Like, that would be my preference. I would prefer to not lose a 4-star offensive lineman recruit to fucking Pat Fitzgerald and Michigan State like we did this week. That didn't make me feel all that chipper. But I'm not going to tweet at the kid. I'm not going to yell about it. I'm going to wish him good luck. And because Michigan State is our AAA team in our feeder school, I'll see him here in 2 years.
And that's exactly how I felt. I mean, I almost tweeted that again, but people get really mad if you tweet that. It's like, no, I'm making fun of Michigan State. I'm not making fun of the kid. Like, I go develop and then come. We will reap the rewards of the Pat Fitzgerald experiment not going well for the next 2 years at Michigan State, which, by the way, Michigan State's athletic director is the number one choice in Kentucky. So that school is a dumpster fire from the Board of Regents all the way down to
Pat Fitzgerald might legitimately be in charge of the entire university right now.
Well, I mean, the fact that Tom Izzo is the only thing that
Tom Izzo, yeah, that might be.
But Tom Izzo's like stays there. Like when Tom Izzo leaves, what does Michigan State have anymore? Like they have
an ice cream store. I don't know if you've heard. They really talk about their ice cream store. It's the best dairy in the entire Midwest.
They also have a really good breakfast spot in East Lansing called Golden Harvest, which is very, very good.
Yeah.
Which I highly recommend. Cash only though. You just FYI on that front. Yeah, Tim. These rankings are interesting. Other teams that kind of stick out to me of the 68 Power 4 teams, Purdue's number 67.
Unbelievable. I was hoping they would have been 68. That was very funny. They're so bad. It is hilarious how bad Purdue is. It's just wrong choice after wrong choice after wrong choice. And the thing is, they weren't that bad even in a couple years ago, right? Like,
yeah, Jeff Brom.
And now they're just an absolute dumpster fire. Congratulations to Purdue that they beat out Boston College in this ranking, but Purdue is
the other
they're
feeder
going
program
nowhere
for
fast.
Indiana. Yeah, so Ohio State. If you had to pick number one, who would you have picked?
I would have put Ohio State.
Same.
Yeah.
Just
I
so
much
they're set up for it.
So clear that I mean, as much as there were some doubts early on, a little bit about Ryan Day is very much a strong and talented football coach as anybody else in college football. They absolutely have the resources. They have the in-state talent. They are well positioned to continue to be a dominant force in college football for as far as the eye can see. So forgive me if I'm holding my breath out on Marcus Freeman just a little bit longer and the rest of the Golden Domers before putting them at number one.
Yeah. Ohio State. And that is not, if we say Ohio State's number one in a future ranking, that does not diminish Kurt Cignetti in Indiana, because in any given year, Indiana can rise up and beat them. But we've held fast on this podcast that one, we did not want to see Ohio State again in the college football playoff. Yep. And that game in Lucas Oil was 50-50. Like it could have gone either way. Now, do I think it was as overwhelming? Ohio State fans act like we got lucky. I disagree with that. But I think that it was a game between two elite teams. Indiana came out on top in that one. I wouldn't want to play them again. Just like I don't really want to play them. Like, let's play them October 17th, and then I'm done with Ohio State for the rest of the year. I'm okay with that. Let's beat them. We'll be great. Let's beat them. Let's get a 2-game winning streak going against them so we can hold that over everyone's head and then never play them. And I don't think they're on the schedule the next year. So, let's just avoid Ohio State for a few years after we beat them October 17th. So, but no, they are a program that is one of the more annoying programs in college football, but you have to give them a little respect there. All right, Tim, it is the summer, which means that we are getting closer. It was 12 Saturdays, counting last Saturday, till college football, or till Indiana plays North Texas. So we're getting closer. So we actually have to start talking about the 2026 roster and what we expect. So Tim and I are going to look at defensive backs and linebackers today, do a little prediction of our starters and biggest question marks going in the year, and then one name maybe we didn't really talk about last year because either they're new to the team or they are developing. And we're going to try to say one name that you should know. So when we come back, we'll take a deep dive into defensive backs and linebackers, and talk about Indiana's defense, plus a little Sorsby conversation and some listener questions and reactions. Quick break here to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, follow, whatever platform you're listening on. It goes a long way to help out the podcast and doesn't cost you anything. If you watch that first part and you saw Tim's camera flickering, if you watch on YouTube and Spotify, he's now switched over. So that's why Tim looks a little bit different than this first time. It's all right. Tim's got a new mic. The mic sounds great. And of course, the camera goes out as soon as we get the new audio. So, all right, let's talk about positional breakdowns. Now, Tim probably can give you more in depth of skill and moving around and give you football terms and sound like a football geek. I am just going to talk about vibes, really. But if you have position breakdown stuff that you want to go more in depth on every single player, this is not Kirkwood Dunn. It's not going to be for you. We are just looking at like, hey, names to know going into it. Who's our predicted starters, those type of things. So let's talk about this. One thing that was very apparent last year, Tim, is that personnel matters, but it doesn't matter as much as some teams when it comes to Brian Haynes' system. Even though there's a lot of rumors that Indiana wasn't injured at all last year, we had some injuries in different times last year, both during the regular season and postseason, and Indiana was able to weather those injuries probably because of the system and scheme that Brian Haynes plays. So players maybe aren't as vital to the system. Would you agree with that?
I certainly agree that Brian Haynes and Mike Shanahan, for that matter, too, they are collectively raising the floors of players that are in their environment. So they are doing a great job of making sure players are in a position to succeed, which means that they don't need the athleticism to overcome schematic mistakes or youth mistakes. And thus we're able to really compete at a high level, even though some of these guys maybe aren't, NFL prospects at 16 and going through all kinds of AAU type camps or anything like that. So I do think that we're raising the floor of our players by our schematic opportunity, but then it still comes on the player to execute. And we learned that pretty well. Other teams learned that lesson when a guy like D'Angelo Pons, all 5'9" of him, came in and blows up your stuff in the backfield. It still takes a player to go out there and execute. And so I think looking at some of these roster sort of construction situations that we've got, we're going to be talking about the players that are going to be hopefully putting themselves in the best chance to succeed and become just like their predecessors, first round NFL draft picks.
So let's talk about the defensive backfield. I'm looking at IU Reactionary puts out a great depth chart. Bite Size Bison has a great scholarship chart. So we're taking reference on them. We just want to give them a shout out for keeping that up. Let's walk through who's the projected starters. So safeties, Amari Farrell coming back is probably one of the bigger returners in college football as a general. Like he was the only guy I think had a specific announcement that he was returning. His agent leaked it to, Knockos or somebody like that. But Amari Farrell coming back was a big deal. Him playing that free safety position is something that you and I at times were somewhat critical of him, of not being able to be that enforcer, come up in the run and run defense. But then in the postseason against Ohio State, he showed times where he was the one that was making that last tackle against Bo Jackson and doing a couple of things. Amari Farrell, I felt evolved throughout the year and became one of the more reliable people next to Lewis Moore. He's the guy that, while I know Jamari Sharp is probably, everyone knows who Sharp is because of his obvious interception.
Winning the national championship. Yep.
I would say that Amari Farrell to me is kind of that leading guy coming back as a starter. Would you agree?
He's going to be a tremendous leader for the defense. I think we think of the IU defense as the middle linebacker being the quarterback of the defense. That was certainly key for Aiden Fisher. I wonder if that will shift. And in some schemes, in some defenses, your sort of free safety, strong safety, depending upon how you use your safeties, can also be that as well. So when I look at we'll talk about linebackers too, but the strengths of Hardy and Bones Jones, it's different than what I think we got out of an Aiden Fisher. And so I do think Amari Farrell can then play a quarterbacking type role in the defensive secondary. It's a veteran group that we really have, which is supplemented by not only Farrell coming back, but Jamari Sharp, but with Preston Zachman and AJ Harris coming in. These are guys that have played lots of major college football. And again, we're seeing the growth and development of some players on our roster ascending into starting roles, ascending into playing time, supplemented with the transfer portal. So that way the group that rolls out there is one that is well balanced, has talent, but also experience, and is ultimately able to execute. And that's where I think this defensive secondary is end up going to be a real strength for Indiana going into 2026.
You said that the guy that replaced Lewis Moore, Preston Zachman from Wisconsin, it was projected to be the starter. One thing, the biggest question mark about him, because he was like an all Big Ten type player a couple of years ago, is just injuries and staying healthy. Byron Baldwin, who was the big gem of the class 2 years ago, who had an injury that we don't really know what his injury was, but it kept him out until the Maryland game, which then he on special teams started making big plays, including the Maryland game. He actually had a fumble recovery. He did a really good job of bringing energy and those type of things. He's expected to play what they call the rover position in the Bryant Haynes. And then cornerback, of course, Jamari Sharp is starting and will slide in to be the number 1 corner. And I would say probably the second cornerback position is the biggest starter question mark. Who is going to take that? Rylan Gandy is who Jamie Jordan has as the starter right now. But Rylan Gandy has a new guy that's coming in who is one of the only 5-star guys that Indiana has on their roster coming out of high school. That's AJ Harris, who transfers from Penn State. Tim, any reaction to the cornerback positions and potentially Zachman and Byron Baldwin?
Well, I think Byron Baldwin is a really interesting player that I want to watch. Like you said, really one of the better recruits, highly rated recruits that we had gotten in recent memory. And I was this week continuing my rewatch of other games and working my way backwards from the national championship. I was rewatching the Peach Bowl, how fun that was. The very first play of that game, the opening kickoff, is Byron Baldwin coming in like a missile to tackle the Oregon returner early on before we even get to the D'Angelo Pons pick 6. He actually does, funny enough, get a little bit hurt on that tackle. He was fine, whatever else. But I watched that play and like, that is an elite level athlete. That's a guy coming in out of nowhere to make a play that we've seen a D'Angelo Pons type play make. So I would be really interested to see, as we have these battles in camp, what do certain teams bring? Are we playing more of a nickel scheme? Are we playing a dime scheme? Whatever else. Does Amari Farrell get hurt or at any point? Is Byron Baldwin the guy that we really bring in to be a defensive playmaker as a younger guy, giving him some reps? That'll be really interesting. I am hopeful about the prospects for Byron Baldwin to be an all-conference type player eventually. Is this the season that he really is able to take a step forward in terms of significant playing time? That's who I'm most interested to see throughout the secondary.
Well, I think one of the bigger underrated things last year was the play of Devin Boykin playing in that rover position. And I think that that's where Byron Baldwin can have an impact. This is my first hot take about these position breakdowns. If Byron Baldwin Jr. is not getting more snaps than Preston Zachman by the end of the year, that's going to be concerning to me. I think Byron Baldwin Jr. has the highest upside of probably any guy in the defensive backfield. And that's where I would like him to see him take those minutes away from Preston Zachman. And honestly, for as much as Indiana rotates players and we're talking about the system and those type of things, Preston Zachman getting less snaps is not hopefully not an indictment on him from a talent level. Yeah. It's just like, can we conserve his legs because we're playing 16 games this season, right? Yeah. And so Byron Baldwin Jr., who's a little bit younger, who hasn't had the detrimental injury history that Preston Zachman has had, can we see that switch from it? And the linebacker position, which we'll talk about, doesn't have the traditional 3 linebackers that we saw Indiana employ last year. That's going to be our biggest question for them. So that means there's going to be more players playing in from the defensive back position because there's a little bit more depth there. From the cornerback position, though, Rylan Gandy and AJ Harris, there's a lot of criticism a lot of confusion, I guess, from people who study tape that the AJ Harris signing, while is splashy on paper, he's not a guy. He's not a guy that he was worse at Penn State than he was the year prior. And
Yeah.
is AJ Harris regressing? And can Indiana get the most out of him this year? What do you think about that number 2 cornerback position?
It is really interesting because AJ Harris was a highly touted recruit for Penn State, had a tremendous
he actually 5-star at Georgia, went to Syracuse, then went to Penn State. So he's been around.
Had a tremendous sophomore year, I believe, for him. And then last year's year was arguably bad to some degree. Now, that's a weird thing. You really don't see players regress in college football. They're too young and too able-bodied to like regress from an athletic standpoint. So it's really hard to understand what happened there. Coaching change happens mid-year. There was I think even some reports this week that some former Penn State players talked about how they poured everything into that Oregon game to try to get over the hump. And then they were just done mentally. The whole team quit, basically, to some degree. Now, that doesn't exactly make me do backflips for AJ Harris to come over. Like, oh, great, we got a guy that maybe might have quit or something like that. And I'm not even calling him out as a quitter. I'm just talking about the situation in Penn State was bad, very clearly, right? So what was happening in terms of the coaching staff, the turmoil? How much was the coaching staff getting a team prepared? Was he really optimized for success? I have no doubt that Brian Haynes will figure out what is the best situation for AJ Harris. And maybe that is a nickel corner. It is a dime corner. It's a nickel corner and he's blitzing or playing in a run space more often. Like, he will find the ways to optimize him. But you are right to say that I think a lot of people are like, ooh, okay, Penn State cornerback. We'll just plug him in for D'Angelo Pons. That may not ultimately be the case. So it will be really interesting to see where AJ Harris comes into play for this defense. And I think you could tell me any range of outcomes and I would believe it.
Rylan Gandy was one of the highest rated transfers coming from Pitt 2 years ago. Didn't see much of the field last year. It'll be interesting. One, I'm impressed he stuck it out. Like we see in modern day that, you come in, you're expected to get minutes. Obviously, Jameer Johnson was transferred out. And so people were like, hey, can, Jamari Sharp and Rylan Gandy, who's going to start in there and that team? So when we see that happen, it's one of those, the guy gets disgruntled, he leaves, and then we see where we're at. Indiana has 2 veteran guys who played a lot of minutes. It sound familiar, right? That's the Kurt Cignetti model. Is like they've had a lot of snaps. They're going to get their chance, and they're going to compete, which is depth is always a good thing. All right, Tim, let's talk about names that people maybe don't know right now that we are going to hopefully know come the end of next year. Do you have any name you'd like to submit for consideration?
No.
Okay. All right.
Nope. I would just say that I think and I would love to hear what you have on the docket, but I think we are guessing pretty highly on any of those. Like,
wow, way to undermine me before I got my part in here.
It's just the way that you form that question is like, I've got no idea if one of these guys are going to take hold. If only just because I think this is so much of a players fitting into the scheme type structure, not a scheme around the players type structure. An SEC 5-star loaded team is just going to put the players out there and then call their plays appropriately. And I think we're running the scheme and we're going to find the player that is able to execute. And that may be a freshman. It may be a senior transfer from low college. And so I would love to hear what you think. Because I don't know that I would just pick a name out of a hat right here.
2 players that transfer portal that I hope step up, at least get one legitimate Big Ten player out of these 2 players, is Quan Sanks, who is from Cincinnati and is a backup safety right now, according to Jamie Jordan's depth chart, behind Byron Baldwin playing that rover position. He's a guy that's like Boykin a little bit. He's built a little bit like him. Can he be in that position if Byron Baldwin has to move over into that second safety slot next to Amari Farrell? And because of Preston Zachman, not recovering from injury as much, or God forbid gets injured again, you need a guy that can play that role. Quan Sanks is a guy that I think Indiana's identified. You got him for 2 more years, so he could be the Rylan Gandy, where he doesn't make a lot of impact this year, but takes a year for development to get there. The one that everyone wants to talk about from a transfer portal thing is Carson Williams coming from Montana State. Like, he's that FCS guy, like, that big programs are starting to get on. And did Cignetti identify a guy that what is going to be a stud at this level, and identify him? And so that's kind of exciting. So speed guy, a lot of people compared him to D'Angelo Pons. He's a little taller than D'Angelo Pons, but like in terms of just some of that skill set. So that's the transfer portal guys that you hope to see this staff kind of identify, that the regular average fan might not remember that conversation in the transfer portal era, and then can hear the name. In terms of guys that they recruited from freshmen and developed, it didn't transfer out, which is always the biggest question for me. Is like, we saw Jaja Boyd, like, he left, and he was supposed to be the big JMU flip that they got in Cignetti's first year, that was going to be the stud next to Angelo Pons type guy. He transfers, and one guy stuck around that had a lot of minutes in the spring game because of Rylan Gandy and AJ Harris being hurt, and that was Jalen Bell. He's a sophomore, 5'10", out of New Jersey. Jalen Bell is a guy that we saw get some minutes in late games last year. And can he be a guy that steps in? You got to look for these depth pieces. You got to look for the linebacker when we get to that conversation. That this pick a name out of the hat is going to be more of like, okay, here was their true freshman kid. So we'll see how that kind of works out. But those are the 3 names. One from the transfer portal I would say that needs to hit is Quan Sanks, and the guy from a development standpoint that I would like to see take the Jamari Sharp route is Jalen Bell.
Well, and I think as we are now going into year 3 of Cignetti, and Cignetti using a transfer portal pretty heavily still, is the randomness of the transfer portal still exists within the Cignetti universe. You know, we do talk about that. He finds the best players, and he does. But I will remind everybody in the IU fan base that at this time last year, when we were looking at the tight end group, we were all like, Holden Stays. This is great. Holden Stays is it. Like, Tennessee player, whatever else. And no offense to Holden Stays, but Riley Nowakowski took that job from him. Yeah. And was critical by the time that we got to a national championship game, and we were all like, we got to get the ball to Nowakowski. That's our outlet, whatever else. So I do expect that the transfer portal experience of us, when we think of like players and their trajectory and where they're going, transfer portal is probably still a little bit of a lottery, a little bit of a growth and development, and seeing how does this guy really fit. And then when I look at it, then I'm looking at the guys that have been around Cignetti for a while and have been around the coaching staff for a while. If you're able to stay and get developed, and you are, you know, of some level of talent, like, they're going to get you in. You're going to get a good position. You're going to play really well. And so I'm really excited to see how this breaks out. But if you told me Preston Zachman actually never sees the field, I wouldn't be stunned. Truly, like, I would think that it would happen. But like, if you're like, oh yeah, actually Byron Baldwin is that dude, and Preston Zachman is now the special teamer, and Byron Baldwin is the guy doing big noon kickoff pregame interviews or something, like, I wouldn't be shocked one bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's a weird element here that he could be the Bryson Bonds of that team. Now, Bryson Bonds got hurt, right? And he's on the coaching staff now, but Bryson Bonds was always just going to be a 3rd or 4th guy on that safety anyways. He was playing special teams when he actually got hurt. So is he that veteran piece? It's always weird when guys miss a whole season for injury, like how they come back. It's like the same thing that I caution like the Lee Beebe stands that are out there, just like, Lee Beebe's going to be the best player. It's like, oh, guys, one,
maybe
he wasn't the best running back 2 years ago. And then also, like, Lee Beebe's coming off of an ACL tear. He hopefully gets back to 100%, but there is no guarantees when it comes to those major injuries like that. All right, let's move over to the linebacker spot. Linebacker spot's a little bit more thin from returning talent standpoint. We expect Isaiah Bones Jones, and Elijah Hardy to be the 2 linebackers. Again, we're looking at James Jordan. He's got a 2 linebacker set here. But if they play 3 linebackers, which they did at times last year for Indiana, my guess is Caden Turner will be that starter. One name that is not on my depth chart, it is on your depth chart, is
Yep.
Jeff Utzinger, who actually had got some minutes last year. I think he got an interception or a tip in the Maryland game. And how will he impact the field as that? Those are Caden Turner and him are both longtime Indiana guys and is stuck with it. And I don't even know if Jeff is scholarship player or not, but he got minutes last year enough to mention his name because if you look at all the other linebacker positions, they are sophomores and freshmen.
Yeah.
So, Tim, your thoughts on those starting positions, and let's talk about the biggest question marks for this.
This is, it was really exciting to watch Isaiah Jones and Elijah Hardy. I felt like really came into their own last year as the season grew on. And now they're kind of the two guys we're looking at, but because we had Aiden Fisher in the middle and calling the whole defense and calling out plays to the opponent and really quarterbacking the entire defensive side of the ball, I don't know if those guys are ready for that role or to be that type of a middle linebacker in the way that Aiden Fisher was. Isaiah Jones, oddly, in my mind, his best strength is actually rushing the passer. That he got a lot of sacks last year. Brian Haynes really does scheme up a ton of simulated pressures. I thought he was a tremendous beneficiary of the scheme. It was Isaiah Jones. Elijah Hardy, incredibly great athlete, was really good. I thought certainly better in coverage, taking backs out of the backfield, taking tight ends, being a little bit more versatile there. And then this will depend on the team in the matchup. Could we have a Byron Baldwin out there in the Rover or Quan Sanks? Sure, absolutely. If we're playing a run-heavy team and we need a little bit more oomph, do we see a lot more Caden Turner? Do we see any of these sophomores or freshmen take a chance here? I think this is an incredible opportunity, especially, and Lord willing, Bones Jones and Elijah Hardy are playing every snap out there. I would love that. But if one of those guys gets hurt, Henry Ollinger, come on board, baby. You're a highly rated recruit. What you got, buddy? You ready to smash some pads? It'll be real interesting. This, to me, the linebacking core is unfortunately, I think, the weakness of this defense. I have a lot more faith in the secondary and the defensive line to play at an elite level. And I love Elijah Hardy and Bones Jones, but there's a third spot here of somebody getting a lot of snaps and a lot of time, and I have no idea who it's going to be.
Yeah, Indiana had a couple misses in the transfer portal. I think the Colorado State kid, they missed out on him. He was expected to be in the linebacker core. My guess is Elijah Hardy is going to be the new Aiden Fisher in terms of calling plays. Kid gets in the Naval Academy, I'm going to assume that guy's pretty freaking smart, and can handle that. And so Elijah Hardy's probably playing that particular role and can be there. PJ Nelson's the only other guy on this depth chart that got snaps last year. Amari Kamara, who, familiar last name for everybody. His brother last year was pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Amari Kamara is now a sophomore. He's the only guy that's returning that was on the roster last season. He didn't get into any games last year. So PJ Nelson's your only other guy that has seen action. Yeah. And he only saw action in 2 games against UCLA and Maryland, which were both blowouts. So I agree with you. I think this is one that's ripe for can Jaden Williams and Henry Ollinger be the guy that comes forward. If I had to say the names that people don't know right now, it's going to be one of those true freshmen that's going to be it. Because, and honestly, it's one of those that if they don't, I think we have an issue at the linebacker position all year, that we're exploited at the linebacker position all year, if that is the case, because teams are going to figure out we're going to go the opposite way of Elijah Hardy. And like you said, can Isaiah Jones be more than just the blitzer, the guy that wreaks havoc? Can he be that sound tackler out of the linebacker position? So I think this is echo what you said. Weakest part of the defense. I think this is going to be a great defense. So saying it's a weakest part of something great doesn't mean it's going to be detrimental to Indiana's chances. But I think it's something to continue.
It would just be, I would not be shocked if we're sitting here in December and looking back on the season, the regular season at least, before the college football playoff, we're probably highlighting a number of plays where the linebackers got exposed. Screen pass here, crossing route there, a blown coverage on a tight end up the seam or something. I feel like that's a likely scenario here. I think we can mask that. I have all the confidence in the world in Brian Haynes to also mask that too, because I do think the defensive line is tremendous. I think it's very talented. And if those guys are able to hold blocks up top, that allows a Henry Olinger to come in and be a freshman and make some mistakes or play free without a blocker getting to him, right? Hopefully that's the case. But it's going to take, I think, the other two units on this defense really lifting up to cover up probably what is a growth time frame for the linebacking core.
And luckily, the unit right in front of them, which we will talk about next Sunday, the defensive line, and specifically the defensive tackles, are elite. So, like, that does help. I mean, see Miami last year. What's so funny is it's almost setting up to be like Miami's defense last year. Miami's defense last year's weakest part was the linebacker core. They had really decent starters, and then and I think Indiana starters are better than Miami starters last year, the linebacker core, but the depth behind it wasn't there for Miami. But the defensive line was that good. They could get to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They could blow up run schemes and stuff like that. Indiana's going to need that again this year for us to maybe Band-Aid over the linebacker core. So something to look at. It's honestly, it's the most right position to have a Roe Hardy or an Isaiah Jones step up, because when we were going into last year, it was Aiden Fisher. Yeah, we got Aiden Fisher. Then who else do we got at that linebacker core? And those two stepped up. So maybe the development program for the linebacker position. I think there's a certain coach that is the linebacker coach. I think he's pretty good. I think his name is Bryant Haynes. I think he's a pretty good coach.
Might be pretty solid. Yeah.
So if there's one position coach that I'm not worried about, which I'm really not worried about any of Indiana's position coaches, it's the guy that won the Broyles Award, the best assistant in college football. Yeah. He can figure it out. So yeah, it's this is why we're talking about this in preseason. When we're sitting around the water cooler and you're talking about like, oh, is Indiana gonna be good? Like, what's their weak points? You could probably say linebacker, but we might all start you might all start looking like me saying Riley Nowakowski is my biggest concern going into last season, and then him being
look at that
elite. So that's where that's at. All right, Tim, let's kind of wrap up here. We saved it till the end because we basically did a whole episode on Brendan Sorsby last episode. But Indiana or Texas Tech's PR firm continues to fail them as they release, after we recorded, a 22-minute roundtable video with all white dudes to talk about the state of Brendan Sorsby and why Texas Tech is doing that. Tim, that was horrific. One of the worst things I've ever watched. Luckily, there's 2x speed because I 2x speed it and then watch clips.
It's like one of those things was like, do we have enough people at this table for this video? No. Let's also get in the assistant athletic director for mental health or whatever that guy's title was. Let's get him a little airtime. We have the president of the university. The president also at this table. How did they get to at 14 minutes going like, no, guys, we still got an agenda to go through. Let's keep going through the talking points. We got more to get going here. Everything about that is horrific. If I were a master AI Photoshop video editor, I would take all those guys and put like minions and have them just like dubbed over all the things that they're saying and integrity of the athlete and like make some sort of crazy video like that. Unbelievable that those guys all put out that video trying to proclaim about how they are actually more virtuous than the rest of us for supporting Brendan Sorsby and his addiction and recovery. Give me a break. What a horrendous video.
It was really bad. Folks, so we joined Facebook. We talked about that last week. Facebook has been an absolute just godsend for content for us because our Facebook hating on Texas Tech and Cody Campbell in particular got into the Texas Tech algorithm.
Which I'm guessing is huge on Facebook.
And people do not hold back on Facebook, which is hilarious. Because like Twitter, we have our trolls, but they're usually anonymous faces. These people have like names and profile pictures, and I can see where they work and where they went to school. Like it is wild what, people will just write on Facebook. Hey, My mom is a great example of this, that she just writes anything on Facebook. And that's why I'm not friends with my mom on Facebook. In fact, she's blocked on multiple channels. So like those are the types of things that's there. But when we look at this, like I just have to read you some of these reactions and get your reaction to this. This was about Cody Campbell being an idiot for the Penn State example when all this stuff happens. Noel says, this dumbass doesn't realize that Cody turned down Yale, Harvard, and just about every Ivy League U to stay home and be a legacy player for Mike Leach at Tech. He's a billionaire before he turned 40, but we're supposed to believe this blathering dipshit knows something we don't? Like, the ride or die for Cody Campbell in this Texas Tech thiefdom, this fandom that he has over there. Let's see, what else do we got here? Because Tim, Cody has more character on his little pinky than this clown talking about him.
Cody has more character. More character? What? What are you talking about?
Get fucked, douchebag. Indiana should have to vacate every win while Sorsby was on the roster for not reporting his gambling.
Indiana didn't know. Texas Tech, you fucking idiot. You guys actually knew and still signed him as a transfer. That's the piece that you're missing. Indiana had no idea that Brendan Sorsby was on fucking FanDuel placing picks after practice. Like, Indiana had no idea. Give me a break.
John says Indiana play an ineligible player in a game. What has Tech done? Nothing yet. What are you talking about? Sorsby was not ineligible because no one knew. The man is an addict and was sending friends transferring money across state lines under 21. Like, the guy should have a criminal case before Indiana is held accountable for Brendan Sorsby playing in those games. I think we won 2 games that season.
That's the thing that so many Texas Tech people have been out in media talking about, like, he hasn't even played. We won't even know, like, why are people reacting this way? Guys, because it's very easy. You could have actually already right now been like, we want to support Brendan in his recovery, everything else. We will not be moving forward with him playing on the football team going forward. And then, you know what? You and I would be here like, cool, all right, fine, moving on, done. But no, it's because you're keeping the door open to playing Brendan Sorsby that we're all up in arms. Yeah, the moment he steps on the field is when I'll actually really be upset. Right now, I don't give really 2 craps about it. Like, you can just shut the door and end this right now, but you don't because you do want to play him. That's why.
I'm going to raise my hand and say you can vacate our wins from Brendan Sorsby's year because Indiana didn't know. Lack of institutional control. We didn't know. Vacate him. Do it.
Yeah, take all 3.
And guess what? If Brendan Sorsby was our starting quarterback, if he would have come back last year, which, by the way, he was never even under consideration to come back to Indiana last year from this coaching staff. Yeah. I wonder why. I would not be supportive of playing him. I would love to see the Tyler Cherry experiment if we were in that situation. So,
right. Yeah, like, people also are forgetting that he was like okay at Cincinnati, that he played Nebraska and Kansas City to start the season and threw for like 59 yards, I think. Yeah. Like, this guy isn't exactly fucking Joe Montana here, guys. Like, let's all pump the brakes a little bit.
He's definitely not the guy that you go to the mat for. It's because
Texas Tech was so bad at quarterback,
yeah,
and he's now the last piece for him. That's why they
but JD Pickles said that they had an electric system last year. Don't
can't
forget.
Wait to watch it. Yeah. Give me a break, JD Pickles.
All right, listen, for actual real question from people that actually listen to Kirkwood and Dunn. Jordan came in and said he had a question for us. Where in the stadium do you think they put up the national championship banner?
Excellent question. The first question is, are they actually even making a banner? Or would they just like placard, something up on the wall? I've always thought that, like, well, since January, that the current press box club suites thing that sits on the west side of the stadium, where it just says Indiana University in a font that we've never used before anywhere across the entire university, that gets replaced with 2026 national champions, something like that. That to me makes the most sense. But also, well, what are you going to do when Cignetti wins 3 out of the next 4 anyway? So you got to start spacing out the wall for the trophies. So I could see a number of things here, but to me, that makes the most sense, at least for this season.
Yeah, I think exactly. There's a conversation between where they put it this year versus where it's going to go permanently.
Yeah.
Indiana I think, remember when they had the elevator shaft that goes up to that press box painted with the Indiana, like, and
Yeah,
they got rid of that because it faded and they weren't updating it regularly. They should paint that limestone, put the 2026 national championships on there. Like, because you want something. Michigan does it really well in the fact that they have it on both of their sides of their big house that I
yeah,
drive past, where you can go take pictures with it, both on the main street and then over on the other side. They've already outside the Chrysler Center put up their basketball national championship banner on the outside of it. I think Indiana should do something where fans can come up and take a picture with it, but also inside the stadium honoring that. I don't know if Cignetti will be for inside the stadium.
right.
It wouldn't shock me if he's like, we're not putting it inside. They took down the victory flag because he was like, this team hasn't won anything yet. Where I was like, keep the victory flag up all year round, like when it was broken and it was stuck up in the sky. So yeah, I think the conversation where permanent, because Indiana's guys also have conversations. Where's their ring of honor?
That needs
They
to
don't
come.
have that.
Yep.
They don't have that. New stadium improvements, I am assuming, will come. Those things should be under consideration, and there should be consideration of where is Kurt. It's going to eventually be Kurt Cignetti Field or Kurt Cignetti Stadium, uh,
Yeah.
at Merchant Bank Field or whatever. But
Yep.
ultimately, the stadium's going to be renamed after the guy. But there's going to be player. Fernando Mendoza needs permanent placement in the stadium for the rest of the time. And you can retroactively look back and put like AT up there. You can put Antoine
Randall.
Randall.
Hmm.
It'd be an interesting discussion to have with Galen Clavio, who's going to come on our podcast here in a week to see what he thinks about it since he's been around the program for so long. But those things need to be consideration. So Jordan, I'm not entirely sure. I like Tim's press box idea. I don't mind it in the end zones. We had the bicentennial logos that no longer are there. That also could be a place for it to represent it. But I think there needs to be one outside the stadium and needs to be inside the stadium to recognize those things. I'm not going to be mad either way. I'm just letting it.
I'm not either. I also wonder if there's maybe something somewhat temporary, maybe just for the first game, that Big Noon Kickoff will be there. What is we did not get into this, or Jordan didn't ask it specifically, but like, what does the first game look like? With do they do something cool? Maybe, probably not, because it's Adidas, and put like gold numbers on, a gold IU Trident sticker just for that game. Like this, we see this in a number of different sports. How do they? We had this topic before. Like, do they put stars on the back? Because the basketball does that and soccer does that. The number of things that they could be doing, I think, will be really interesting. I would love that elevator shaft. Yeah, forget that. Actually, just put the championship trophy sticker. Like, imagine a giant 200-foot tall National Football Championship trophy, like canvas, stuck up there would be really cool. I do agree with you. Like, and if there's some way for fans to engage with it, that's probably the biggest priority.
Yeah, and there's also banners on the Assembly Hall side. That's the Indiana that always looks really good. It's I think one of the best picture sides of it, and it's not by the USS Indiana's military stuff. Like, I think it's on the opposite side of that, which I think would be good. Tim, a couple things. One, speaking of Adidas, it looks like there is now a retailed Adidas jersey that doesn't look like crap that is online. It got the Ryan Cotter approval, so I know it's all right. That looks to be for sale, or at least coming out for Indiana here soon. So that's good news on that front. All right, on Wednesday, we will do another ranking. Our ranking, we have to decide that. We always love to decide so people know what's going on. Here's what I got for you, Tim. We can either do the Big Ten spectrum of threats for Indiana coming into it. So the 10 teams that we would be feel the most threatened by, to keep in the theme of that. We could do bars or places to watch in Bloomington as we're getting ready for that. Or finally, we could do best college basketball jerseys. We could do a basketball ranking. We haven't done that in a while.
Feels like we're past basketball season.
Yeah, we really are. No one wants to talk about it.
Nobody wants to talk about basketball.
We also could do quarterbacks. We could do top 10 quarterbacks. We had said that we were going to do that sometime. We could do the 10 worst quarterbacks in the Power Conference, but the problem is that we did the most overhyped quarterbacks at one point.
Yeah, I think we go with the 10 of the Big Ten opponents that we're most daunted by.
Okay. Most daunted Big Ten opponents.
Yeah, we did the non-Big Ten. Let's do it with the Big Ten, because that's like we finish up. We were actually really only scared about 2 or 3 teams in the rest of the country. I will tell you this, that it's probably a similar number within the Big Ten, which tells you how we feel about, or at least I feel about, the conference being the best college football conference in the country.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. Like, we haven't put out publicly, like our stadium one is getting ripped. That's so you put these out. I mean, pull back people listening over an hour into our podcast. You understand what we do. We do the ranking. We have a good discussion. Hopefully you find that entertaining. A lot of you listen to those episodes, so I'm assuming you do. But then we put it out online with no context, and so people have no idea. So like the people that are upset and up in arms about Ryan Field being on our top 10 is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
One, I don't think a lot of college football people that are on TikTok or Instagram even realize that Ryan Field is new. Like, they think we're talking about the old Ryan Field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different context that goes into those things. We haven't put the spectrum, the threats out. Indiana fans are going to be mad about that one. I know they are, because they're going to be like, we're not scared of anybody. And then number 2, when we have South Carolina on the list, people are gonna laugh.
Yeah. When they see Florida at number 4, they're gonna laugh.
I already put that clip out. That didn't people. That got likes. That got likes. I think people understood. All right. You can follow Tim at TB Hoosiers. You can follow me at ST McGee. We'll be back on Wednesday with the ranking, normal stuff. Then next week, next weekend, we'll have another episode on Sunday. We're hoping to have a good interview during that one. Then we're looking towards the 4th of July. We're doing another draft. Got a great panel ready for the draft. We're going to record that next weekend, so I have time to edit it. But this is why you should subscribe to Kirkwood and Dunn at Kirkwood and Dunn on all platforms, because you don't want to miss these episodes. See you next time.